All right, I'm back as promised. We're gonna do a little compare of this is Old Pumpkin. I actually brewed this back, it was drinkable in 22, so it's 2 years old. But believe it or not, I've had older beer than that before, and it's always been spectacular. And I've had one of these not that long ago, and it was great. Anyway, this is the new, so let's do a little comparison here. And remember, the only real difference between these is that the new pumpkin had unfermentable sugar in it, so lactose sugar. I wanted to give it more of a pumpkin pie sort of flavor, so let's do a little compare and contrast. Gotta open it up. Old, new. Sorry about that. That's the way it goes. Everything's out of reach. All right. That's the old. This new batch was brewed on February 25th, so I don't know. It was probably drinkable sometime around maybe middle of March, or no, it wasn't that close. Middle of April. Okay. I don't know if it's just the door being close over there, but I would say that the new is just a little bit darker. And the grain bill is exactly the same, except this year I was using like Great Western grain, I believe it's called, versus my Briess. I don't know if that had played any role in color. Obviously there isn't as much of a head on this one. But let's give it a shot. Cheers. That's still a really good beer. And the pumpkin, you can really smell it. It has a good mouthfeel too. It's kind of a medium-bodied beer, I would say. And I would say that and it might be that it just hasn't aged long enough, but it hasn't aged 2 years, that's for sure. I don't get as much of an aroma off of this one at this point, but let's try it. It's different than the old formula. Not in a bad way. For some reason, it has kind of a little bitterness on the front end of it. And then it does finish with a sweetness on the back. I think it's got to condition longer, to be quite frank. But again, I'm still... you'd think grain is grain, but I'm not so sure it is. I've noticed a difference even in the way it mills, so that may have played a little bit of a part in it. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong with it. It just isn't, it isn't as pumpkin-y as I would have liked, and I put the same amount of pumpkin spice in this one as this one. Now, what may have happened and what I may need to do the next time I do this, and believe me, pumpkin beer lasts a long time around here because there are not a lot of people that say, hey, I want a pumpkin beer. Al does, Al loves it. But, that's only one person. And I like it, in the fall. But I think what I might need to do next time is up the pumpkin spice in this, because I think that maybe the unfermentable sugar is maybe taking away from that somehow. The body's the same. I think it has to carbonate longer. It's still pretty young beer. And also the flavors might mellow out a little bit more at that point too. But the hops were all the same. The grain bill's the same. Gravities were identical. I can't really think of anything that was different except the brand of grain that I used. and that I used unfermentable sugar. But again, it's still a really good beer. You definitely get a little bitterness on the upper roof of your mouth, and then the pumpkin flavor takes over. And it does have kind of a sweet finish on it. This one doesn't have a sweet finish on it. I kind of prefer the new, I think. Yeah, I think if I were to have these two beers somewhere and someone asked me which one I preferred, it would probably be the new one, but I think I need to dial it in a little bit more. So next year, let's do a 5-gallon batch of it, and we'll up the spice, and we'll stay with 1 pound of the unfermentable sugar, whatever I put in there. I'd have to look back at the recipe. You can see it down below if you go down to my videos. I'm sure I have one on there, but I think I'll even keep that the same in a 5-gallon batch, but I will definitely up the pumpkin pie spice, and we'll see how that turns out. So that's kind of it for that. As far as the honey wheat, I've had a couple of those so far, and I've never been a fan of I brew the honey wheat for my wife because she really likes it. There's other people in the neighborhood that really like it. I was never a real fan of it, only because to me it's kind of a hot beer. It is probably the highest alcohol content that I have in a beer. The old version of it, which should be the same as the new, is 7.1% ABV. The only difference that I had this time when I brewed it is that I did not put the honey in during the last 3 minutes of the boil. I waited for it to get down to 120 degrees, and then I stirred it in. And I noticed it's a very mild, clean beer. And I'll show you guys in the next video. I don't want to drag this out. Wanted to kind of just concentrate on the pumpkin, but in the next one we'll go through the honey wheat and we can talk about that. In fact, I may even have a couple bottles of the old stuff around, but I don't know that I want to drink that. I just wasn't a big fan of that, but this, could hardly believe it was the same beer. So anyway, next time we'll talk about honey wheat, and until then, I hope you guys have a great week. Cheers. This has been a Matty Boy presentation. Say bye-bye, Matty.